Welcome back to the channel. Today we have episode 6 of the Netplay Hero Tournament versus Casual Mindset. Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we have a topic I've been kind of pondering on for the last let's say like 5 to 7 years. It's been a while since I've actually sat down and actually fully thought about and contemplated it. And that's something that's really, when you are in a competitive environment, whether it be fighting games, MOBAs or anything like that, anything that requires a player versus player mentality. And, it's always relegated to generally two different topics, or in categories rather. So it's casuals, and you have tournament, or exhibitions or scrims or something like that, where something's on the line. And I've always seen in my own self a marked difference from how I play and approach things from when there's nothing on the line, as opposed to when, everything is on the line. And, whether it be money or pride or, for your ego or anything like that, how your mind works, and how mine works in particular, it feels like there's so many things on the line, but there really, in essence, really isn't. You know what I mean? That's a lot of the reasons why I think that, the sports culture in the United States is so rampant, and it's so loved, and it's so celebrated, because these people are able to execute and play at their pinnacle of their talent level when everything is on the line. And that's something that a lot of us can't do. I still believe to this day the number one fear of the U.S. general populace is public speaking. You know what I mean? So just being on the spot, being on the ball, everybody's looking to you, and you got to make that play. That does cause some people to kind of choke up, freeze, stuff like that. So what I want to discuss is that kind of entire mentality, that kind of psychological aspect throughout this video, right? So let's take it back to when I first started actually playing competitively. So the first game I ever played competitively was Melee, right? We played that game to death, hours and hours and hours and hours. And granted, I wasn't anywhere near a really, really good level. In fact, I didn't really understand a lot of assets or facets of the actual game. It just was something that, 4 of us could sit down and play for hours. It was always fun. It was so a random game. We didn't really use any tournament rules or stuff like that, but I could always see a difference in myself when we were just playing casually, when nothing's on the line, versus when, we would run a first of 5, exhibitions or something like that. Or so I would call you out, and, you're kind of on the spot, and how you play and how you perform from that point on. I could always kind of, see my nerves get the best of me. And just to a point where I was just performing so much worse. The disparity between how I actually normally play and playing when something's on the line, it was so stark, man. I'm talking it was heaven and earth. And I don't really consider myself one for nerves in general life. You know what I mean? I'm not really a person that, under pressure, I don't buckle or fold. That normally makes me focus really much clearer. And really just kind of helps me narrow down my thoughts to what I need to do in a lot of other facets of life. But when it comes to fighting games in particular, with the execution involved, it's not just words coming out of your mouth or a presentation that you're giving. It's actually, making the right decisions, executing the right commands. All of those things are done, in all these micro transactions in your mind. They're all going off at any given time. So any number of those being done incorrectly would kind of my mind sometimes, most minds are like a computer, right? So when something didn't go according to plan or schedule, it would almost felt mentally it would cause this damn system error, to the point where I would just not be able to reconcile that, and I would just live in that moment. If my opponent did something so random, or they just did something I just did not expect and it was so far out there, I would be living in that moment for the rest of the set. It wouldn't matter. I just was not able to get out of that mode. And it's something that I've always kind of thought of, as I played more games, the transition to Melee, to Brawl and stuff like that. We used to actually hold weeklies up here. There was a really nice kind of a cafe or arcade that we used to have up here. We used to hold weeklies for Brawl. That was really interesting. I won the majority of those, but again, this was not high level Smash. It was literally maybe a local of 20 community people, no pros here, but I understood the game enough to win with that, with Zelda no less. That was my bait. That's still bait to today. That's actually one of the reasons I bought Ultimate. So I could even feel it, when I had to play in tournament, or I make it to grand finals or something like that. I would be thinking so much about everything, and I was not able to clear my mind to the point where I knew it needed to be done. I knew the game plan, but I just was having extreme issues with executing it. And again, this is just a local with like 15 to 20 people. There's nothing on the line, maybe a $20 and a game voucher or something like that. That's nothing, in the scope of everything. But mentally, a lot of way that our minds work, it makes it into this really enormous feat that we don't want to crumble under pressure, or we don't want to be embarrassed in front of our friends or our peers or anything like that. We don't want to look bad. I think that a certain part of that anxiety definitely does live in all of us as competitors, and the ones that are able to control that and master that aspect of themselves are the ones that you see at the top generally, because it's not just about having skill or having talent or having really good reflexes, hand-eye coordination or knowing all the tech. You can know all that, but when you put your hand on that controller or that joystick, are you able to execute that game plan? Are you able to stay in your mode, in your zen, in order to execute the game plan how you need to? That's something that's always kind of eluded me across multiple games. And I think one of the other games I was very prominent in was Marvel vs. Capcom 3, or Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 rather. Probably my first true competitive experience, the game that really got me into the FGC completely. Outside of that, it was kind of a button masher outside of Smash. I didn't understand, quarter circle forward, command inputs, all that kind of stuff. It was really just, just mashing, you playing Marvel 2 with your friends and stuff like that. It's just, that was a game that made me want to be better as a fighting game player. So I learned combos, I learned inputs, I learned timing, all that stuff. And as time went on, we were just playing online, but there'd be tournaments and stuff like that. And one thing that I was always notorious for is running first to 10s, right? Because first to 10s were like the FGC staple, and Marvel 3 it definitely was, right? That's a real contest to see who's better. And we were playing online, and again, nothing on the line at all. But even if I was like really ahead in the set, say I was like 7, 8, or 9 in a first to 10, and the opponent was at like 4 or 5 or even 3, I would, if they won like 1 or 2 games back to back, and depending on how they won those games, it had the propensity to completely throw me off my game. And I'm not talking about like just a little bit, I'm talking about like completely shaken. Like when you get hit by something that you just can't block, or you just don't expect, or they keep hitting you at 99 seconds repeatedly and you can't figure out why this is happening. Situations like that, if your mind isn't able to adapt fast enough, that adaptation is not occurring, that is just going to cause just a huge cascade effect. It's like a nuclear reactor going off. It's like once it starts, it can't be stopped. And normally I could close out some of those sets, but there was a fair amount of times where they would just come all the way back, where I was just not able to close out the set because my adaptation to what was going on. And as that momentum train starts building on your opponent's side, they start doing things that they normally wouldn't do. They start feeling themselves, and you start getting hit by that stuff. And it just becomes an entire real snowball situation. So that's one thing, about the actual casual mindset and the actual mindset of being in a tournament. In casuals, generally, I would say I play at least 100% better. I think most people play at least 100% better. But for me in particular, I just have always noticed an extreme stark difference between the two. It's like, man, why didn't I do that? Or I'll go back and watch a tournament, or I'll watch anything and I'm like, what am I doing? You know what I mean? Like, it's just, and then I'll go back and watch, against the, so let's use this as an example, right? So we played against Soldiers of Valhalla in Friday Night Fights. And it was a very interesting Friday Night Fights. I actually did a lot of things that were actually a lot of my struggle points. They did things that I didn't expect, or to me, just I considered like in the moment, I considered it very random, or things that just didn't reconcile in my mind. So that caused situations where I wasn't able to adapt fast enough. And they have like a decent amount of team members and a decent amount of different compositions. So for them, it was another day in the office. They play like this on a regular basis. But to me, somebody that's relatively rigid when it comes to the game, I like using standard team comps, practicing against a lot of teams that use standard team comps. That can actually be a flaw, you know what I mean? Because you're still stuck in this linear mindset. You are stuck in, they're gonna do this, and then they're gonna do that, which is one of the worst things to have as a fighting game player. And to a certain extent, a lot of different ways in life. You wanna be flexible, you wanna be, spontaneous, you wanna have that kind of ace up your sleeve where they don't know what you're gonna do. So not knowing actually what they were going to do, we actually lost the exhibition. And I would definitely say for the most part, I just could not adapt fast enough. I think that my teammates actually played pretty well. I went back and watched the VOD, and it sucks to know that sometimes you personally might have lost it for your team. That's the thing with team games, right? He's like, yo, did I actually just throw this whole damn match for my team? Did that just happen? And sometimes I actually feel like that. And in that exhibition, for sure, I think that for sure I was the weakest link there. So shout out to my team mates, Jay Smooth and Brave Fantasy, and shout out to Team Soldiers of Valhalla. They did a really good job winning the exhibition. So the other part of this equation was, I was like, that loss, I took a little hard because I was like, I didn't really feel like we were being like grotesquely outplayed. I just felt like we were beating ourselves, right? I was like, what actually happened here? So I asked them to play in a scrimmage, right? So we played in a scrimmage. And granted, we didn't have our actual team. We had Zikryu, who's actually a really good Golbez, probably one of the better probably like top 2 Golbez in NA for sure. He's really good. So we played a scrim. We played all 18 maps. So the end score was 16-2. So I went back and looked at my play in particular. I did a stream about it where I just looked at the archives. I was like, I'm playing more comfortable, like the things that they were able to do before in the exhibition, they flat out weren't working. Like there was a bunch of punishes that I got from them stepping after doing attacks, or certain attacks that would just step every single time and I just cross slash them and that was it. And that kind of raises the question, why am I able to do this in casuals? Why am I able to identify these patterns or these trends in casuals when there's nothing on the line, or not able to adapt to what they're doing in real time? And I do think to a certain extent, a part of it had to do with the actual character I was using. I said I was going to use Cloud through the whole script, and I did. And I think Cloud does fit me pretty well because he's a really, really great all-rounder. Not just that, the things he can do are really, really excellent, right? He can put you in a 50-50. He can just dash up to you and just start charging. Just situations like that. He's really good at punishing steps. He's just all around really solid. And throughout the exhibition, I used a lot of different characters. I used Sephiroth. I used X-Death, and Sephiroth, we all know how that goes. He's either godlike or he's trash. It doesn't matter who's using them. And X-Death, I just couldn't find my rhythm throughout the exhibition. So after playing the scrim, I was like, does that mean, what does this mean? Does this mean that we're better than them? But they won when something was on the line, So as far as I'm concerned, that makes them the better players, whether it be for that day. But that's what the tournament record shows. But it kind of folds back to the original ideas I was exploring when we started this video, was how can you bridge that gulf? How can you try to fix some of those behaviors or patterns or just really, really bad habits that you have? Whether it be nerves, anxiety, how can you train the brain in order to not be your biggest opponent when you're playing in a very serious fashion? And that's something I haven't really figured out yet, to be honest. I would definitely say that I would probably need a lot of work on that. And a large part of that is that I'm not really a competitive player. I think everybody knows that. I play generally casually. I'm much more, TO, event organization, stuff like that. And I think by far I excel in that. And I'm actually happier doing that than I ever was competing. So it just comes back to, putting yourself in that situation over and over again, experiencing how that feels, and then kind of trying to retrain your brain in real time. I think that's one thing that there's a very notable player, Marvel 3 player, Filipino champ. And he is like, during the Marvel 3 heyday, he was like the actual poster boy for 100% like grinding all the time. He had this Twitch channel called FGTV Live, and they would sit there and play Marvel 3 for 12-hour days. You know what I mean? They stream all day, go to sleep for like 4 hours, wake up, and it's a house full of people just playing, So there's a lot of different practice you can get. There's a lot of different scenarios you can put yourself in to try and correct situations. So say you're struggling with a certain matchup, you can keep putting yourself in that situation to figure out the matchup, decode the player, and actually try and improve. So that's one thing I always liked from the FGTV days, and that's one thing why I think a lot of people really respect F-Champ when it comes to his work ethic. A lot of other things that he does may be slightly unsavory, but his work ethic I don't think has ever been in question. He will sit down and grind out a complete matchup until he understands it in and out, and he'll put himself in situations where he needs to figure it out, against troublesome assists and stuff like that. And I think that's part of, I'm not saying that's a whole solution, but that's definitely a step in the right direction. That's going to allow you to try and mentally retrain what you do, you know, what your default reaction is, because sometimes you don't have time to think. You just need to react. So if you retrain your brain to that being your default reaction, that's one step on the path towards correcting that and really trying to bridge the gulf between scrimmages and when something's on the line. You know, I think that's something that I want to try and work on as a player, and it doesn't necessarily just have to be relegated to Dissidia and T. This is something, as I mentioned before, that really just stands out to me as a player, and it always has. You know, I know that this is the problem, and as I got older, you know, I'm not really playing competitively that much, so it kind of went to the back burner. But now I kind of feel motivated again to try and take a real serious approach to fixing this. So we're gonna go ahead and wrap it there. I was really looking forward to this topic. This is something that's kind of been on my mind, you know, now and again. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. Give me a tweet on Twitter. Definitely subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.